10:12 is our time. Joined alongside Ike Skelton in the studio with us. Ike Skelton, good morning.
Good morning, KB.
How are you?
I'm doing really well. How about you?
Well, I'm glad that it's Friday.
Yeah? Well, does that mean much when you're a radio guy like you are?
Well, yes.
Yeah. You
Yes.
still got all the weekend stuff you got to do, don't you?
We still get excited that it's Friday and we
Yeah.
get an opportunity to play. That's what we're going to do this weekend. We're going to go see a concert tomorrow night and then go hang out with some friends on board the celebration on Sunday. That's kind of the game plan at this point.
Excellent.
It's, it could change within a few seconds.
For sure, right. Well, that's the great thing about living around here is that if you have the time and opportunity, there's just a lot of great, neat things to go do.
There's always plenty to do. You're absolutely
plenty
right.
to do here at Lake of the Ozarks, and I don't know. We were talking earlier off air that traffic seems to be picking up around here a little bit, and folks are starting to come down here. I think it kind of cracked open over the 4th of July weekend. I wasn't seeing quite as much traffic, at least in what I do, but after the 4th of July weekend, we're seeing things pick up a little bit. So
normally on those holiday weekends, you get called to a lot of lockouts. People that lock themselves out of their vehicle or their home.
Yeah, definitely homes. People coming down here that left their keys in Kansas City and they're halfway down here already and they don't want to turn around and go back, so we have to meet them at their home and unlock them. If you got a second, I'll tell you a fun story.
Go ahead.
It was when my brother was still running things. He had a gentleman call him and says, "Well, we left there. I believe it was last September, and we haven't been back since, and we're pretty sure we lost the keys, and we're going to need somebody to help us get in there when we get there." So he drives down here, and my brother meets him there at this location, and they go up to the house, and the key is still sticking in the lock.
Oh, you're kidding me.
No, dead serious. They left it there over the entire season, and they came back in the summer. It was there all winter long with the key sticking in the lock.
Was this a place pretty secluded or what?
Well, it's one of these, one of these places out here, none of them are secluded very much. They're all right next to each other, as most houses are. Wow. I'll tell you the fun stuff, and sure you've seen it, but some of these driveways to these houses is just, I don't even want to go down them with my service vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
They're just getting back out of them is crazy. I can't believe we don't hear more stories of people driving all the way through their garage and all the way through their house because their brakes fail or something. That's just that's crazy.
I can imagine sometimes if these driveways ice up in the winter months, or if you've got a long driveway to traverse with lots of potholes and things like that. Yeah, I definitely I wonder sometimes, but it's one of those instances. I'm sure that. You get out there, you have it graded maybe once or twice a year, and that's about all you can afford because they've got other driveways much like yours that they have to take care of, some better, some worse. But back to what we were talking about, the last time you were here, you helped me with a lockout.
I did. Yes, I did. I got the key to your wife and got her rescued there.
And I appreciate that. Thank you very much. 10:15, we are going to talk about some property issues, and then an issue that's being tossed around in Osage Beach in regard to private property, and ticketing folks on their private property. And I know that you had an opportunity to address the Osage Beach Board of Aldermen and kind of talk to them about the issue or what you thought was maybe a direction that they needed to go, or at least check into this a little bit more. So wherever you'd like to jump in here this morning.
Well, one of the first things is that this is something that is just a base importance as a citizen that you should be getting involved in any of these issues that deal with something that you don't like or that you do like. Go address your alderman. Go address the mayor. Let them know what's on your mind. Let them hear from you, because I believe in a lot of instances they hear the complaints. They probably hear callers coming in here. They probably get some nasty emails once in a while, whatever. But how often do they really have someone come in and really just have a dialogue? And then as I was speaking to the council, and you get 3 minutes, or the board, and you get 3 minutes, and I get that. You can't filibuster. You can't take up the whole evening. There's other work to do. But you can't really have a dialogue. And I find that a little bit unfortunate. I guess that's what you get in a representative republic, kind of. You elect your representatives, you get to voice your opinion to them, but in the end, they make the votes and they make the decisions. And it's a good system that we have. It's not perfect, but it's very good. The problem problem that I saw in that is that, again, we can't have that dialogue. I really would like to have engaged with folks to find out what really is your intent. Why are you doing this so much? What is the big impetus for coming up with this sort of ordinance? And you can't really do that so much. You just get to say your piece, and then you go sit down, and then they discuss amongst themselves other things afterwards, and you have no more time for input, which I find very difficult, because it would be good to engage in some of the things that they talk about during their time. Oh, I didn't think of that. I'd like to address that issue, but you can't do that. Mm-hmm. Public comment is very first, and after that they go about their business. And then, I guess you could go sit down with the mayor. You could go sit down with any one of the aldermen and talk about this situation. But if and somebody can call in and correct me if I'm wrong, please do. I'm wrong often. But it's my understanding that if you have like 2 aldermen together and a couple of citizens and you're talking about this sort of issue, well, that now has to be a public meeting. They can't talk about city business and so forth without it being more open. I don't believe more than 2 of them can get together and discuss an issue without it being an open meeting and being on the record. So, to me, that is a little bit unfortunate, but then that does put a lot more responsibility on the citizenry and to go read what is going on, and that's what I've done. And and again, unless I'm reading it wrong, and I don't really want to talk about intent anymore, because I was talking to an individual this morning at breakfast, and they said, well, there was an ordinance that was created in whatever hometown they were from, and it was just this little bitty thing that they were going to do, and they created the ordinance, and then X amount of years down the road, it was way wide open. They had expanded what they were doing. It was a fire inspection thing. I think they expanded that greatly on what their original very narrow intent of the law was, and now it's this big, huge thing. And I think that when we create a lot of ordinances like that are very open and vague, that's exactly what winds up happening. You might have, a city council, board of aldermen, chief of police at one time that sees a narrow problem that they want to try to fix, so they come up with an ordinance, and then it's there. Well, once those people are out of office, maybe that new person coming in can see that ordinance, and they can expand that into the way they want to see things done. And then when the citizenry comes around and says, hey, what is going on here? Well, you didn't say anything 5 years ago when that law was first enacted, and now here we are. And there's almost always an unintended consequence when it comes to some sort of ordinance or a law, and there's always going to be someone who wants to have a little more power struggle or whatever it is, so that they can crack down on you just a little bit more and put that thumb on you just a little bit more.
Normally the people that start the ball rolling aren't necessarily the ones that are there in future years. And as we've said plenty of times, folks have good intentions and good ideas, but then you take something simple that you wanted to utilize to maybe take care of a specific problem, and then it becomes a little too broad.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And if you look at the federal level especially, they are rife with that sort of stuff. As a matter of fact, we had talked about this before when it came to Agenda 21 and other different land uses and what the EPA was wanting to do. President Obama didn't create any new laws. The Congress at that time did not create any new laws. All they did was reinterpret the laws that exist into the language that they wanted to use, and then sent it out there as whether it was an executive order or just a rule from the agency or whatever. They were just reinterpreting and broadening what those loose rules wanted to do. So we have to be very careful with this kind of stuff.
Let's take a phone call real quick. Caller, thanks for joining us this morning. You're on KRMS.
You made a comment about intent. If there is a law that is there, let's say in reference like you're talking about the fire safety inspection, then is there not a place that you can put a brief explanation of intent?
To my understanding, you can, and certainly when it gets to a court, and that's why, like at the General Assembly and even at your alderman meetings, the minutes of those meetings are very important, because when you do wind up in court, you could go back and use that as to show the court what the intent of that bill was, and then I guess you just have to hope that the judges at that time are willing to accept that, okay, this was their narrow intent, we're not going to allow it to get any broader.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the phone call, 302-7000 or 877-330-1150. So often you hear, various folks say, my door is always open. Feel free to come in and talk to me anytime or give me a call, and we'll try to work you in. Mm-hmm. I wonder, is now, and you said that if you have a certain amount of people, a certain group of people together, like a police chief and a mayor and a couple of citizens, it could be considered, or then it becomes a public meeting. But when you're only given a brief amount of time to speak in the first place, do you really think that is more of the obligatory, hey, let's let them get up and express their thoughts and ideas, or do you think that in that 3-minute period that those folks that you're talking to really get a good idea of what it is you're talking about, or what you're trying to explain to them as far as your viewpoint on something regarding the city?
I think it's a case-by-case basis, and, I have to feel a little bit for the aldermen that are sitting there trying to make a decision about something. Maybe the chief of police comes to them and says, hey, we have this problem we need to deal with. The city attorney comes to them and says, this is how we can deal with it, let's do it. And then without input from the public, then that alder person needs to make a decision and how to vote, and then they just use their own guidance, their own thoughts, and so on and so forth. That's why we elected them. They're our representative, and we hope that they make the best decision that they can given the information they have. And I would hope that during that 3-minute little time frame, and this was just the first reading of this ordinance because they changed some of the language. So we're going to have a chance to talk about this again, and I think it's on the 20th of July, if I remember correctly. We'll check on that date, but I'm pretty sure that's when it was. Because of the holiday, they had to extend their meeting dates. But anyhow, I would hope that during that 3 minutes that if an alder person hears something new that they maybe hadn't heard before, or an angle that they had not considered, that they will step back and take that into consideration and think about it. Unfortunately, I believe that a lot of times legislators, aldermen, whatever, their minds are already made up about how they're going to do things, and a lot of them, I think that if they could vote a particular way that night when it's first talked about, they'd do it, get done with it, and get it out of the way.
You don't think that they'd want a little bit more input from the people as far as we talk about, as you said, the unintended consequences, because sometimes on the surface something seems like it's a great idea, but then again, case in point, there was a councilman out in Ohio that said on the third time a heroin addict calls to have them come out and rescue them or help them or whatever, if the person is overdosed, that they shouldn't come out and help them. Third strike, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. And so maybe on the surface, because he was looking at what it meant to that city to spend, I think it was $100,000 a year on this drug that is supposed to reverse what the overdose does to you. I guess they give you the drug, and it has the potential to save your life, but it costs the city six figures, and they were planning on doing this every year. So rather than continue to have all these heroin addicts, if this is the third time that you've called 911. Or somebody's called 911 for you based on an overdose, just let them die. Don't go and respond. And, again, on the surface, you understand what the point is that this person is trying to get across. But when you think about it, the unintended consequences, who knows? And I wonder, in a case like that, especially when it comes to heroin, if fire and rescue or ambulance folks or EMTs or even law enforcement, they'd say, well, you can't just leave somebody there to die. I mean, if there's something that you can do to help them, and it sounds a little preposterous, and there was a lot of outrage from the community based on what this particular councilman had to say. I don't know where it's gone. I don't know if they've dismissed it, but I mean, you understand kind of the point I'm trying to make. Sure,
I do. And I had actually made a comment on a post that somebody had put on Facebook about that, and a lot of people didn't like my point. I said, liberty has consequences. And then someone brought to my attention, well, if it's a public entity that's doing it, such as the 911, then they cannot really discriminate on who they're going to go help and who they aren't. And I get that. The other side of that is how long, we talk about this in family and we talk about it as enabling, okay? So how many times do we go out and rescue that, heroin addict from overdosing? How many times do we help the, It's a tough thing. At what point do you say, hey, enough is enough? You should be a responsible individual, and if you can't, then I'm done draining the city coffers to help you. And I know that's something I'd like, we should sit down and have a discussion about that sometime. But there's a point, there's just that point, there's a tipping point where when are you going to be responsible for yourself?
Absolutely.
And when is that dangerous activity that you have to know? You have to know that it's bad activity, especially if it's the third time that you've overdosed and almost died. When is it going to click in your brain that the next time you maybe will be dead? I know addiction is horrible, and we can work on some treatment there, whatever, but I don't know. There's just a point in time where enough is enough.
Well, and again, I think that's the point he was trying to make, that at some point you have to stop going and helping these people if they don't want to help themselves.
Right.
If they're willing to get to such a point, because what did somebody tell me? The first high is the ultimate high. And then after that, people are going to try and go out and match that or exceed it.
Right.
And they'll do whatever means necessary, which means, I guess, in certain instances, taking too much.
You have more of it.
And overdosing.
Sure.
So 10:27 is our time. Ike Skelton is our guest. We're going to take our first break. We'll come back and talk some more on KRMS.
KRMS and KMYK has job openings for account executives. These full-time positions consist of calling on clients, soliciting new business, copywriting, managing existing account lists, and data entry. Advertising, sales, marketing background preferred. Office traffic position. This full-time position consists of general office duties, including computer skills, answering telephones, greeting guests and visitors, data entry, production, clerical, filing, and administrative support. News director, reporters. These full-time positions consist of gathering, writing, and reporting news surrounding the lake area and beyond. Experience in the radio industry is preferred. Talent positions. These full-time positions consist of on-air talent, communicating with listeners and guests, copywriting, production, and scheduling guests for shows. Experience in the radio industry is preferred. Send resumes to KRMS KMYK, P.O. Box 225, Osage Beach, Missouri 65065. KRMS KMYK is an equal opportunity employer and drug-free workplace. No phone calls, please.
This weekend, head to the lake's favorite Cajun restaurant, Shorty Pants. Enjoy first-class Creole cuisine with authentic Cajun dishes like their world-famous crab cakes and legendary cocktails. From Mutto Mojitos to Cajun-style Bloody Marys. Get to Shorty Pants this Friday for Dustin Clark. Saturday, come listen to the sounds of Travis Marvin, both starting at 7. We're celebrating 13 years at the lake, and we couldn't have done it without you. Join us Tuesday for our $15 crawfish boil with Jim Beam and Bud Light specials while listening to the sounds of Spontaneous Duo. Open daily at 11, Shorty Pants, your luxury laid-back lake experience.
Simply the best place to eat at the lake, Wobbly Boots. Enjoy award-winning barbecue along with a full menu, including our wings and ribs voted best at the lake. Wobbly Boots has something for everyone, so dine in with your family and friends or carry out. With happy hour specials all day on Sunday and weekdays from 3 to 6. You'll love our great lunch specials and smoked prime rib specials starting at 5 on weekends. Located just off Passover Road in Osage Beach, Wobbly Boots. Food so good, it'll knock your boots off.
Chaseco makes every job, large or small, doable. Rent everything from tile cutters, skid steers, and pressure washers to 10,000-pound reach forks and 70-foot boom lifts. Verified work ready. Equipment that's always at the best price. Chaseco Equipment Rentals, the real deal. On Blue Ridge Road in Kaiser. Call 693-9044. Chaseco, where renting is better than owning. One of Missouri's classic restaurants is in Lake Ozark, perched high on Heron Hill. It's the Blue Heron.
Come and find out for yourself what made the Better Fried Lobster famous. And the poached lobster in Champaign ain't too shabby. Don't miss treating yourself at the Blue Heron restaurant. And we will make your evening special.
You want to know what's going on tonight, this weekend, or later at the lake? Check out LakeGetOut.com, the definitive source for what to do at the lake, what bands are playing, and where. Theater, fish fries, fishing tournaments, church or city events, open houses, and a whole lot more. It's all on LakeGetOut.com. You can even submit your event for free on LakeGetOut.com, a free service of the creators of LakeJob.com. KRMS and 93.5 rocks the lake.
Go on and get out tonight. LakeGetOut.com.
Jeff Sessions.
I didn't have communications with the Russians.
The desperation here on the part of Democrats is almost laughable.
The Ozarks Today. News Talk KRMS.
10:31 is our time. 81 degrees. Plenty of sunshine. No more precipitation. It's all moved either away from us or it's non-existent. It kind of came and went. 10:31. Let's get back into the discussion. My guest, Ike Skelton. We've got a caller on the line. Caller, thanks for holding. You're on KRMS. Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. Two separate comments. The first one's on not answering the calls of somebody who is a known addict. I can sympathize with that, but I think you've got to answer calls because you never know if that's the incident that you're going to check on.
Right. Sure.
But
that was one of the
when you
things
get the government coming on, I think it was on the news yesterday, it says they've gotten a pharmaceutical company, they've pressured them to withdraw what was apparently one of the most effective drugs out there for people with really serious chronic pain because somebody's misusing it and abusing it and they might overdose on that. That's when I think you've just gotten way out of bounds. So you're going to deny all these people that have a real need because somebody is abusing the drug. And the second one is, I guess it's as much a question, don't you think that a big part of the problem with the people we have in government is this really big misunderstanding or lack of education on the essential functions of government? Not what's good or beneficial or helpful, but what we have government for in the first place. And the Declaration says it's to secure those rights to the people. It's the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. It's not to go in and do what's good. It's not to go in and do what's helpful. It's not to impose your will. It's to do what is necessary to preserve liberty.
That's why none of these people could make tough decisions. That's why none of them are able to stand up. They always do what's popular because that's what they want so they can remain in office.
This is why the education system is so crucial. I don't have kids, and I don't think of it that much, but we aren't teaching people anymore. The comment I made to show me yesterday that when you come in and say we're lucky in Missouri because they've given us so much freedom in the home education, you don't have a sound grasp of what is going on. They didn't give us those rights. Those were our rights, and all we have is a good thing in Missouri that they don't take more of them.
I think you're very correct, caller, and I think that the lack of education as to what the government is supposed to do. Look, I would bet you that 80% of the lawmakers in Jefferson City have not read Article 1, Section 2 of Missouri's Constitution that states that we have a right to life, liberty, happiness, the gains of our own, the enjoyment of the gains of our own industry, and it is the chief design of the government is to preserve those things. And those folks up there don't know that and haven't read that. And actually, the fascinating part is when you bring it up to them, they give you this blank stare like they really don't know what you're talking about. And oh, by the way, we're going to do what we think's best for you anyway. So I think you're right, caller.
10:34. Let's go back to the phones. Thanks for holding. You're on KRMS.
You kind of hit on this a little bit earlier, but I'm going to put an emphasis on it. We need to look at history. We need to look at what government has done when we've given them a power. And they have never limited that power. They've only increased it. So the heroin thing sounds like a great idea.
Thank you for your phone call this morning.
What I really liked about what that caller said right there was given them the power, and that is 100% correct because all political power, and in Missouri's Constitution anyway, is vested in the people, period. And the caller is absolutely right. We give over to them, to the government, a bit of our liberty and a bit of our responsibility and this power whenever we allow them to create some sort of an ordinance or a law or what have you. So your caller is absolutely right about that.
10:35. Let's go back to the phones. Caller, thank you so much. You're on KRMS.
I just totally agree with Ike about taking personal responsibility. It just amazes me, though, how many people, you'll read it on Facebook, and somebody wants to pass a law that all for safety. And they're like, well, if it's safe, if it makes us safer. And half the time, it doesn't have anything to make anybody any safer. It's a revenue generator. But they will just swallow that hook, line, and sinker and say, oh, my God, we've got to have that law because somebody's going to be safe. Mm-hmm. It just drives me crazy to hear that.
I think not only are you correct in that regard, but I think also they sell it as a guise of safety, when in reality what they want to do is have more control and power over the citizenry, not just a revenue generator. The
discussion we had yesterday with the folks from the Show Me Institute in regards to civics, teaching civics, and what the founders and pluralism and things like that, and the point was made about the Department of Education coming into place on the federal level in 1974, and how are we able to get by with it up until that particular point? And look at again, it was probably something that somebody sat down and said, well, we need some regulation on the federal level. Let's put together this Department of Education, and now look where it's at with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education here, DESE, in the state of Missouri. And somebody said, well, we can do away with that. And then one of the folks from the Show Me Institute said, well, no, you're never going to be able to do away with it now. Yes, you could very well do away with it if enough people made a big enough stink about it, but then there you go.
Our nation is over, 200 years old, right?
41.
All right, very good. Very glad you know that, sir. Now, okay, so then for about, 60 of those years we've had Social Security, and what did we do before that? Why do we have to have that now? But now, and this is what one of your callers said about education, lack of education, and what you mentioned about how an elected official doesn't want to make a decision. They want to hem-haw about things. They don't want to make those tough decisions because people get on them. So even when you get on and talk about ending Social Security and ending Medicare and Medicaid and some of these other things, you better be very careful. You're probably never going to be in office because so many people want that. Well, if you would just look back in history and see how we could be more prosperous if we didn't have some of these albatrosses around our neck. That is the largest part of the budget in Washington, D.C., and they stole from that fund time after time after time. It's broke, and it's going to have to get paid back, or the whole country is going to be like Illinois eventually.
1038, back to the phones. Caller, good morning. You're on KRMS.
Good morning, KB. Great show with you guys again.
Good morning, sir.
Have you ever heard, Ike, of any school or any educational facility with teaching of drugs and what heroin can do and why it is killing 13 young people an hour across this country? I mean, think about that. 13 people an hour.
Wow. Drugs
are taking their lives. And then they talk about an overdose of heroin. Heroin doesn't come into this country on proof. It's not, this heroin is 80 proof. That heroin came from Mexico. It's only 30 proof. Mm-hmm. There's no way to know what you are injecting or taking into your system at that time. And addicts, when you become an addict, you're not really taking heroin at that time to get the high that you once got. You're taking it to try to get normal, and that's why you become an animal more or less out there in the street. But if we had an educational system that started out very young and tried to teach the people that are in the schools what it can do to your system, do you think that would help? I mean, again, just 13 young people an hour. My God, across this country are dying from drug abuse.
Well,
I'll hang up. And hey, Ike, are you going to run for any office?
I'm sure I will one day.
We're sure going to be behind you, my friend, when you do.
Well,
I'll hang up. Good show, KB.
Thank you, sir. Good to hear from you. I
appreciate that. Caller, I love you, and I like the way you're thinking. But I have to tell you, a school, we had DARE, and I think there probably still is some DARE. I don't know if that's still being funded. But we do have an educational system for these sorts of things. It's called parents. And I believe it's time that parents need to step up and make sure that they're the ones teaching their kids the problems with drugs and alcohol and other things of that nature, instead of relying on our schools to do that for us. Now, can we have maybe some sort of what's the word I'm calling, some sort of a backup plan or a booster or whatever, something to reinforcement training in our public schools? Yeah, maybe we could, but it falls back on our parents. It really does.
Remember the PSA, this is your brain, this is your brain on drugs.
Yeah.
And then the kid, the kid's dad comes in and he says, I heard you were smoking pot. He goes, where did you find out about this? I learned it from you.
Yeah.
And the dad's like, oh man. So I guess, depending on it's what role parents want to play in the lives of their children. If they think that the drug issue is a serious enough issue to sit down and talk with them, and maybe more than just talk with them, I know I told my son, I said, you're going to be exposed to things in your life when you're growing up. You're going to be in situations where maybe somebody wants to smoke a joint, somebody wants to drink a beer. I said, the rules and regs. And I said, based on some things that have happened in his life, he knows exactly what some of this stuff can do.
Sure.
And I guess I've been just very fortunate that he has always tried to go down the right path, or he's come to me and he told me, hey, listen, Dad, they were drinking beer. I didn't, or I did, or, they were smoking pot and I did or I didn't. And he's never done any of that. But I'm just saying he's at least come to me knowing that there's not going to be any kind of a backlash if he's just open and honest with me about it. I mean, I might get a little upset, but more, I think at that particular time, I would be just thankful that he took the time to come and talk to me about it.
I think that's awesome that you and your son have that kind of relationship, and I think that's perfect. And you're absolutely right. You can't talk to your kids about drug abuse, alcohol abuse, whatever, and then come
when you're sitting there smoking on a joint, yeah,
right, or you're slurring your words while you're talking to them because you've had your fifth martini of the evening.
Exactly.
So you have to think about things that way for sure. So, yeah, I mean, that is our basic responsibility as parents. And the best thing you can do is do your best, train them up the way they need to be trained up, show them the way, and then pray that they make the proper decisions.
And if you don't feel comfortable talking to them, I mean, there are other avenues you can pursue.
Yeah.
Don't just say, well, and that's like, I remember the sex talk. My father passed away when I was 12, so we had never really had that talk at that particular point, so it was left up to my mom, and my mom felt very uncomfortable, so she found somebody that was a little bit better suited to have that discussion, the do's and don'ts and the birds and the bees and all that sort of thing.
And if you don't know how to approach your child on it, there's plenty of information. I don't want to say the government has that information, but they do, and a lot of it is quite accurate. And not everything the government does is insidious, just most of it.
And there's people that you can talk to that live in your neighborhood. I mean, local law enforcement.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of police chiefs and sheriffs around here and deputies and members of law enforcement that are happy to sit down and talk with these kids in the capacity of, I'm not here to say what's right or wrong. I'm just here to tell you and give you the information, and then you do what you want to do with it. I mean, there's a lot of places around here where you can go, your local church.
Yes,
and
yes.
there's a lot of there's a lot of things that you can do here locally because you ask any of these folks in law enforcement, and that's essentially what they want. They want those kids to be able to have that relationship and develop that relationship and be able to come to them if there's a problem or an issue and talk about it openly before it gets worse.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Quick phone call before we have to go to break. Caller, good morning. You're on KRMS.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Believe me, they definitely teach a lot in schools around here anyway about drugs because both of my kids in about second or third grade came home telling me I was a drug addict because I still smoked cigarettes. But between the DARE program and all the other health classes they take, they definitely get an education about what drugs do and all that. But on a different note, though, I wanted to say that as far as regarding these lethal drugs like heroin and crack, I think what they should do, instead of a 3 strikes law, you just die, what you need to do is enforce more law as far as saying, okay, you're going to start working for the state now to pay us back. You put them in jail or whatever, and then you put them in programs where they work back and pay back to the state.
It'd be an interesting, and I think they're trying to do that now with food stamps and things like that. They're trying to find ways for these people to get to work.
But generally, I think that once you're into the position where you're a drug addict and you're that far down into a hole, you're not going to be very productive working with the state. And not only that, you still have to be able to take care of yourself. Where are we going to create these jobs for these people to work for the state? What are we going to have them do? Cleaning the sides of the roads or something of that nature like we have inmates doing now? Where are we going to pay for them through? I get the idea. I do. I just don't know how it would work on paper or how it would work in reality.
Well,
we'd have to sit down and look at it.
That's
really.
where most things have to start. Somebody's got an idea, and then you just sit down and kick it around until you come up with something that hopefully works. 10:45. Let's take a break. You're listening to the Morning Magazine on KRMS.
Can I get that delivered? Hi, Kent Porter here for Porter's Building Centers. That's a question we hear a lot. Let's face it, handling lumber and building materials sometimes is not easy. And if you don't have a truck, well, you might be in trouble. At Porter's, delivering the material for your project is something we are good at. We deliver on our trucks and with our people. And if your order is in and paid by 10 a.m. Monday through Friday, it will be there that day. I guarantee it. Porter's Building Centers in Lori. Porter's, we're here to help.
Bored at the lake? Then you need to pick up a copy of Vacation News Magazine. Our bi-monthly issue is jam-packed with information on every event at the lake. Find shopping, dinner, and where your favorite band is playing in Vacation News Magazine. Best of all, it's absolutely free. Vacation News Magazine is your source for information and special offers from local restaurants, bars, and retail stores. Get your copy of Vacation News Magazine at any convenience or grocery store and make your adventure today.
Hi, this is Jeff Smith with Alpha Graphics and Alpha Custom Apparel. We're the Lake's full-service, one-stop printer that can handle all of your printing, custom apparel, and promotional product needs. From business cards to business shirts and bandanas to brochures, we can make you and your business stand out. Our in-house design team can put your imagination on paper, apparel, and/or social media. State-of-the-art printing equipment gives you the highest quality finished products with a quick turnaround time. We have the best printing prices in town and can meet all of your printed needs, including rack cards, posters, and full-size banners. Our printed products are produced locally and support the lake area. Alpha Graphics and Alpha Custom Apparel is locally owned and operated in Osage Beach at 1140 Industrial Drive. Stop by and see us or give us a call at 348-5900 for a free quote. For all your printing needs, Alpha Graphics and Alpha Custom Apparel are here to help you increase your reach.
Hello, this is Crystal Wilson, owner and operator of Low Cleaning. As a lifetime Lake Area resident, I know that finding honest, reliable help can be difficult. Low Cleaning wants to change that. Specializing in commercial, residential, and construction cleanup for over a decade, our company cares about its clients and we work hard to prove it. Whatever your cleaning needs may be, Low Cleaning is here. With flexible hours, affordable rates, and quality service, just give us a call at 480-6040. That's 480-6040.
Discover the power of radio. If you own a business, advertising is a solid investment in the growth and future of your business. Consumers who buy products and services from you knew about your business or store before their need occurred. Advertising increases the likelihood that more consumers will know who you are when they're ready to buy. Discover the power of radio.
Make this summer your best summer ever with the power of radio. Call KRMS and 93.5 Rocks. We can help. 348-2772.
President Trump touting Trump Care. They're making party changes now to try and get the GOP on board.
The Morning Magazine. News Talk KRMS.
.49 is our time, 82 degrees on our way to a high of 91, which is going to feel more like it's 95 or 96 or 97 or 98 or 99
Yeah.
with the heat index, whatever they're trying
150.
You know what? As far as the heat index goes, it's great that somebody takes the time to figure that out, but I really could care less.
Now hot's hot.
It is the Morning Magazine. Ike Skelton, our guest, and we wanted to talk a little bit about something that Ike addressed earlier with regard to traffic ordinance that they're working on in Osage Beach.
Yeah, what you mentioned off the air, when we start talking about these things, it's just a general liberty issue, and then we start kind of getting into, broader liberty issues, and that's beautiful. And I love all the callers calling in and the input, and I think that's fantastic. It makes for a great show here and good debate. But I wanted to get back to this just a little bit. This new section, if you look at Osage Beach City Ordinance Section 340.150, Section A is the only thing that's on there, and what they're going to do, and that says that every person operating a motor vehicle on the highways of this city shall drive the vehicle in a careful and prudent manner at a rate of speed not to endanger property or any other person, basically. What they're going to add is it shall be prima facie evidence that a vehicle operator is not exercising the highest degree of care if the operator of a moving vehicle engages in any conduct that causes his or her vision or attention to be obscured, diminished, or directed elsewhere than the path of travel or safe operation of the vehicle. First of all, prima facie evidence is basically you are guilty until proven innocent. Prima facie means that you're doing it. It's here on the surface. We can see it. It's there. It's in plain view. You're guilty. You're doing it. So, and we get into this a little bit farther, and it says, writing and drawing, manually inputting information to a GPS. These are things that could be considered a problem. Using a mirror to engage in grooming, reading anything located in the vehicle other than the operation of the information displayed on the vehicle's gauges. Then it says, or turning one's head substantially away from the path of travel to observe things in the vehicle or outside the vehicle, but contrary to the path of travel. And then they added this second part to it at this last meeting. It says, nothing in this ordinance shall apply to a motor vehicle on private property not open or accessible to the public. Part of the intent here, I think, was they wanted to be able to, in an accident on a parking lot, like say at Walmart or Menards or something, they would be able to come by, I guess, afterwards and ticket that person for not being careful and prudent. Now, this isn't the state issue. It's not careless and imprudent driving, is the way I get it. This is only going to be a city ordinance, so I don't think that goes against your driver's license. I don't know that 100%. Honestly, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know that. But what this is going to do is this is going to open up, and it's worse than I really thought. I thought at first it was just going to deal with parking lots and whatnot, and private parking lots. That is part of a problem for me because that's private property. But this is going to open it up to where if, I don't know, do you look back maybe while maybe your kid is in the car seat and you got to look back because now maybe they're choking on a drink you gave them or something. You got to look back and see what's going on. Is that good enough that you have now turned your head away from being on the driveway or driving where you're driving, and is that now a not careful and prudent manner? And this is where it comes into intent, and this is where it comes into me opening up something that is not intended to begin with. You might have a city council and law enforcement right now that are only going to use something like this in the most extreme cases, and then they could also ticket somebody. But you're also going to have people out there that are going to nitpick every single thing that you do. And once they pull you over, they now have free reign into your vehicle.
You mean if
into your life.
somebody's having a bad day, things aren't going well?
It can happen.
It didn't work out. It didn't work out the first time with what they originally pulled you over for, so they're going to start looking at other things.
Maybe I don't want to try to determine the thoughts of any one given police officer at any one time, but you can't say that doesn't happen. They're all human. They all have bad days. Everybody has bad days.
It sounds to me like most of this was set up, though, to combat distracted driving, because as we have talked about plenty of times, distracted driving is becoming more of an issue, especially with teens. And there was a survey out that I was talking about yesterday. Missouri is one of the worst states when it comes to teens and distracted driving and teen deaths. A large amount of those teen deaths are being, I guess, the responsibility or why did it happen? Distracted driving. They were on the cell phone. They had a bunch of people in the vehicle with them, or who knows, any other of the number of things that you quoted there, eating or grooming or reading and things like that. So it sounds to me like essentially maybe they're looking more at issues of distracted driving, but again, with what we've talked about earlier, you've got that little sliver.
That's right.
That little bit of information or a reason why they want to do something, and then they turn around and say, well, we're going to expand on that, and to the point where it kind of gets out of control.
And I think that's right. And as a matter of fact, if you look at part of the discussion, the attorney for the city even said that if we leave it vague, it would be more easy to prosecute. If we put more things that you can or cannot do in the ordinance, then it would be more difficult to prosecute. So I don't.
That almost sounds like they're setting it up for future use.
See,
I mean, if you want with something like that, I think you should be very descriptive, very technical, and that it should be pretty crystal clear as to what it is they're talking about. But if you leave it out there for somebody to interpret, kind of like they do with the Constitution and the U.S. Supreme Court, are we following the Constitution or are we interpreting it?
Right.
And that kind of falls into place there.
And is that court going to consider your liberty and your rights more than the safety of the community? See, and I think the safety of
money, and the fact that there's money to be made.
And not only that, but let's say that so as prima facie evidence, you're already guilty. You did it. Yeah. Well, now let's say maybe something else, and we can argue it or whatever. Well, now I have to come up with an attorney. Thousands of dollars I'm going to have to come up with to have an attorney to defend me against the city. The city's got pretty deep pockets. They're going to defend it as long as they want to, and you're going to have to come up with that money to help defend yourself. So I just, folks, we don't need more laws. Doggone it, we need a better heart in people. We need people that are more responsive to their neighbor. that care about what's happening to their neighbor, that cares about the driver that is behind them. Am I going way slow and in their way? Am I impeding their freedom of their travel? If I'm in front of them and I'm not accelerating onto the doggone highway so that we can get up to speed and merge and be decent traffic, do I think about that person, or do I just say to heck with them? I'm in my own little world. I'm going to drive the way I want to, and if I wreck you, I wrecked you. I have insurance. So it's not the ordinances, it's not the laws, it's our heart, and we have to get back as a people to be more concerned about our neighbor and what our actions do that affect our neighbor in a way that is detrimental to their liberty.
And that is essentially what seems to me like we get away from more and more with each passing day, thinking about those folks around us and thinking about how our actions affect them and whether or not we need to be more cognizant of what we're doing. Now, you talk about you can use any particular topic, and I think driving is a good one because so often, we see that place there in Camdenton where they've extended it there at 54 and Business 5 to now you can go a little bit farther before you have to get over, and you always see those people that pull up in that right lane, and they want to be it's like a drag race.
Yes.
But then that person in the left lane looks over and says, "Oh no, you're not going to beat me today." And so they literally for 400 feet have a drag race, and it is the car in the left lane. Are they going to allow the person in the right lane to come over, or are they going to continue to force the issue? And I've seen some pretty interesting things going on there. And it's like you're in a 1,500, 2,000-pound vehicle. What are you thinking?
Sure.
But it doesn't make any difference at that point. It's all about, no, you're not going to get past me.
That's right, and that's a lot of the mentality that folks have. And I'm not telling you I'm the most innocent and greatest driver in the world.
Come on, Ike.
Sometimes things get to me too, and I do something stupid, and I have to wake up and realize what's going on and back up a little bit, and it's frustrating when I'm trying to get to somebody that is in some need and needs to get locked, in their home or whatever, and people putt around, but
But they don't know that the other people, the people in the other cars,
exactly right.
they see Ike and they say, "Hey, look, it's Ike Skelton."
Well, maybe I need to come up with an ordinance that allow me to have red lights. I don't know. Ooh. Yeah, red lights and blue lights, sirens,
red lights, and I wonder how you'd have to get something like that passed. Would you get it? You couldn't certainly do it on the city level or the county level. You'd have to do it more on the state level, maybe even the federal level, since locksmiths all over the country would say. Now, I don't know how many times that's happened to me. I've been on my way to a call, and I've gotten stuck behind somebody who's just not paying attention.
Right.
But I think the true problem with it is we, as a society, we've got all these little devices, and we've become so self-absorbed that maybe that's a large part of the problem. We've taken the focus and the emphasis off the things that we need to be paying attention to, like the road, and especially when you're talking about teaching kids about drugs. I would think that the one thing that you would definitely want to teach your son or daughter about is distracted driving, and there are so many very simple ways to do that, PSAs or educational material or whatever. So, Ike Skelton, good to see you, sir. We'll talk to you again in about 2 weeks, so that'll be on the 21st, and he'll be back in the studio with us. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, sir. You too.
And if you lock yourself out, I've got a friend who can help you here. Have a wonderful weekend, folks, and I'll talk to you Monday morning at 6 a.m. The Rush Limbaugh program is next. CBS and local news on the way. It is the Morning Magazine, wrapping it up for the week on KRMS.
Your number one source for local news. News Talk 1150, KRMS, Osage Beach, and 97.5 KRMS FM, Laurie.